Hello, dear friends! We continue our work, record our next video, and here I would like to tell you about the protocol of total prosthetics, which I developed within the framework of my practice. The fact is that I do prosthetics to patients not only with the classic clinical cases when they just need treatment, making crowns, but also patients who are complicated, whose problems also lie in the TMG dysfunction or a disease of these joints, or with muscle and joint parafunctions. The fact is that working with such patients requires special attention and a special approach, because these patients haven't come to us first, so to say, because they could have already received an orthodontic treatment, the first or second, and even the third sometimes it is necessary to carry out. Or this is a patient who has repeatedly undergone prosthetics, and here the huge task for the doctor is not to make a mistake, because if we've already made a mistake, it's clear that there is nowhere to go further. The patient is already exhausted both morally and financially. Therefore, a work protocol is required that will allow this possible errors to be minimized, firstly, and the second is to understand where other doctors were around colleagues. The fact is that those doctors who work before, they aren't bad, they are good, and this in fact complicates our work even more. Why? Because we have to understand where this normal doctor who has experience, who has done many total restoration and works suddenly made a mistake, and why? Because in turn we can very easily repeat this mistake and come to a negative result again, but this should not be. Therefore, I bring your attention here such a protocol, which nevertheless in any case will protect you from possible pitfalls, because each patient is individual and it could be used in our work for each patient. The first one, where do we start? We start with a diagnostics. The diagnostics is quite extensive. At the time of consulting patients with total prosthetics, we understand that these patients are already at risk group. The fact is that in the previous videos I told you that we can divide them as part of working in the chair into healthy patients, into compensated patients, and into patients already having some kind of problems. And remember such an example as a traffic light, which allows you to do this dividing. If you don't remember, watch our videos, you'll see and hear everything there in the most detailed way. But we do not need to provide any methods in order to understand that these patients are at risk group. Why? Because decompensation in these cases, if it didn't result on joint problems or muscle problems, this decompensation went on the hard tissue of the teeth. The teeth, they were cramped, and it happened, of course, not from sweet or sour. They crumbled due to some loads that caused some kind of overload of one or another group of teeth. And if we just repeat that, the patient here will most likely get an overload of our work. No matter how well it is done, we can get a problem there. Therefore, the first thing, we start with diagnostic. Based on the diagnostic, we began to plan treatment. I also spoke about planning in the previous video. The fact is that this decision-making and design choice is an integral process that takes place in the head of prosthodontists, and they may not even be aware of this. And in our previous videos, I tried to concentrate precisely this moment to sort it out. The fact is that, again, this allows the doctor not to miss a very important aspect of our work, to make exactly the solution that will be justifiable, which will give the intended result. Temporary prosthetics, the fact is that all our patients, especially when it comes to total prosthetics, go through the temporary prosthetic stage, and this is not a simple temporary prosthetic that you do by manufacturing provisional crowns or by manufacturing the so-called squeeze crowns using quick hardening composite material. No, this is temporary prosthetics. It is also called prototyping. That is, we essentially make prototypes of our future permanent crowns. These crowns are already made on the basis of our planning, and the planning isn't done just on a paper. For example, here we make 5 crowns, and here we make 25 crowns. Now, colleagues, planning is carried out in virtual programs. For example, on Excel, right? There we already evaluate the height of the bar, the position of the occlusal plane, the inclinations of the incisors, etc. and so on. That is, the planning is carried out virtually. Next stage, once again, this is a temporary prosthetics on the basis of which we can what do? We increase the height of the bar, produce the appropriate crowns already on working models. This allows me at the stage of, for example, permanent prosthetics, what to do. I cannot immediately fix all the work, but fix one side there, or front teeth or back teeth, setting prototypes in those areas that I have not already fixed at that moment. But again, the protocol implies your actions, that is, a step forward or a step back. And where do we start? Diagnostics. What does it show us? The first one, as part of the diagnostics, we rely on the so-called occlusal index according to its calculations, and how to do it we will definitely make a short video that will help you more clearly understand what I'm talking about and how it is done technically, because the calculation of the occlusal index allows you to understand in more detail whether the patient is compensated or decompensated, how wide are these opportunities to adapt to your work. Also, we have created a special methodological material on this issue, a training manual which briefly and clearly tells you how to do it. You can request it, we will send it to you completely free of charge. In the language you speak, we will make translations into several languages and send it to you. High occlusal index. If we get this data, what do we do as part of our planning? We immediately write that a pre-prosthetic preparation will be carried out. What does it include? That is, if the patient came to us and we understand that in addition to having broken teeth, he has also problems with the TMG, he has problems associated with muscles or a fascial pain or some other problems and so on, the first stage, we do not grind anything. We don't do orthodontics. We don't do anything. We analyze the situation, carry out diagnostics. Based on the diagnostics, we make a splint, a mouse guard. We carry out the so-called splint therapy. If within the framework of these diagnostics we understand that we need pharmacotherapy, then we are also adding it. Therefore, according to the results of the pre-prosthetic preparation, it doesn't take a lot of time. On average, it is months and a half, maximum 2 months, not very long. Once again, mouse guards are not made for 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, months, or a day. They are made to solve a determined specific problem. If this problem is solved, you must proceed to the next step. So, if at the stage of pre-prosthetic preparation you see that you got some negative result, that is what happened to us. For example, the intensification of pain, the appearance of some additional problem. Then, at this moment, you need to stop and take a step back, return to the diagnostics and understand why it happened. Because most often, if you did everything correctly, if you performed an adequate diagnostics, then the reasons for the development of complication as part of the pre-prosthetic preparation or the lack of improvement, that is, the situation does not change. Most likely and most often, as I judge from my own practice, this is a systemic damage and is precisely systemic in nature. That is not local but system. Therefore, it is very important to connect other doctors, our related specialists. It can be a rheumatologist. We had such a patient with bacterial disease. He has bacterial disease. It was revealed during the course of a dental examination, and this cannot be treated dentally. It's never acute to you to treat with mouse guards, for example, problems of a TMG as a result of polyarthritis or psoriatic lesions of the joints. It won't help. This is a completely different type and approach to treatment, but what do we need to do? Step back, and we can take this step with you because we haven't yet intervened. We have not grind teeth, we have not put braces on. What just can we do? Remove the mouse guard and step back to where the patient feels not very good, but not as bad as in the new ratio of jaws, in the new height of the bite. If all is well, then we can take the next step. This is step towards temporary prosthetics, and this is very important here because temporary prosthetic is not just an aesthetic solution so that the patient doesn't go with the grinded teeth. No, temporary prosthetics plays a big role in the next step to adapt the patient to a new ratio, to the height of the bite, and so on. Because the mouth guard doesn't replace teeth. Colleagues, it doesn't replace teeth, it is only a medical device. But temporary crowns and hernia are prototypes. These are the future prosthetics that will have your patient.